Hey everyone, welcome back to Agency Success Community here at hosting.com. I put out a post on LinkedIn and Twitter and about anybody cool using AI, WordPress related to agency work, and one name was suggested to me, among others, but Russell Aaron. And I want to welcome him onto the show today. We're going to be talking about some AI things and how he's using it. And just from our conversation and prep for this, I was like, this is exactly what you need to hear. I told him, I said, hey, I got to admit, I'm not a developer. I know these things kind of on the surface level, and some of the just off the cuff answers he was giving me are going to help you today use WordPress and AI in a really powerful way. And for the agency owners, we're going to kick off with something Aaron's done that I think you're really going to want to hear about. So without further ado, Russell, Aaron, welcome to the Agency Success Community.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, Russell, tell everyone, tell me and everyone else a little bit about yourself and the work you do.
Sure. I am a user of WordPress first and foremost. That's what I identify. I'm the power user, if you're familiar with that term from way back when. I, by trade, am not a developer myself. I have been in WordPress support for the last 15 years. I've done everything from working at casinos in Las Vegas to working at some of the larger places like web dev studios and stuff like that. I mean, when it comes to WordPress support, I've covered everything, even to different managed WordPress hosting platforms. I've done a lot there. So I've spent my whole WordPress career teaching people, and that's really what I do currently. Is I hold one-on-one sessions with people who really want to take control back of their website. That's really been a thing for the last, as far as I've been, 15 years in WordPress. Is, you hire someone to do something and you don't own the keys to your own car, so I help you get the keys back to your own car. That's really one of the biggest things that I do.
It's fantastic. And I can already tell like how you kind of came up in WordPress and those 15 years you mentioned, by the way, congratulations.
Thank
That's a
you.
long tenure. And for a lot of people, I think being able to talk human to say, okay, here's a complex thing in my mind. And when I've asked a couple of questions before, I'm like, yep, you get it. You can make that natural transition to share what it's all about. And really, most importantly, help people get the word out about what they're doing in their business and things that I think you might have used the word trapped, but trapped and don't feel like they can use this awesome vehicle to help promote, communicate, reach, engage, all those things with their customers. So that's fantastic. So this will be in the show notes, but you can check out, and we'll talk a little bit more later about Russell's work, but RussellEnvy.com. Go check out what he's doing. Well, Russell, okay, the three-man team. This is an open source
Yeah.
project you put out there, and I think it's so cool and will resonate big time with agency owners going, how can I leverage AI? How can I use these things? And the way you put this together is so smart and really the backbone, what I've seen working with agency owners about how the development process goes. You understand those principles of keeping the project on the right, train tracks, so to speak. But would you mind telling us first about the three-man project and what it really does?
Sure. I've been in WordPress a long time. You've been in WordPress a long time. And so, like when you go to a WordCamp event or you go to like a press conf or you go to something like that, you have very interesting conversations with somebody who you've either never met before or, like you start hearing somebody speak and you're like, wow, I really wish I could pick their brain. So for me, when I started using AI, I was very trusting of it. And I'm not saying that I don't trust AI currently, but what I'm saying is that if you just say, write me a WordPress plugin that does a contact form, it will do that for you. But does it follow any standards? Does it check? Does it add unknown things that don't need to be there? And so I'm very skeptic of that. And so when I started doing this, I noticed that even just building my own website. I built out HTML files that I wanted to, like, this is my homepage, this is my about page. Like, I just wanted to see what my brochure site looked like before I spun up a WordPress theme or anything like that. And I was already having issues where I would be having a one-on-one conversation with it, and I would say, no, don't do this. Okay, now change this. And it was almost like, instead of me compiling my thoughts in my head and saying, now you're going to do steps 1 through 10, I was just kind of winging it off the cuff. And I was like, no, don't do this. Now do this. Now. And so I was all over the place. And that's kind of how I see AI currently, is that if you don't really know what you're doing, it's almost like the wild, wild west, where it will just pull references and it will pull any kind of not a Google search, but it will do its own internal search, and it might bring up a document that you don't want, and it might implement whatever that document is saying, and now your project goes sideways. So I needed something to have like a guardrail for my own safety.
Yep.
So I was looking around, and there are some wonderful products out there, but I wanted something that was just mine. So I have what's called a 3-man team, and it's on GitHub. And so I have an architect, and my architect is somebody like you, Cory, somebody who's ran a business in WordPress, who isn't the developer, but you have enough insight to know, in 16 months, is WordPress going to be here, or are we just building this for 3 months today? Or in the long run of this, like, is this the picture that we're going for, or is it a nice to have? So that's one man on my team. I have an architect, and he's like my 45-year-old CEO who's seen it all, right? He's done this a few times. He's actually a combination of like you, of like Sean, of like Brian Messlaner, of like a few people, just people I've met. I've given each person a persona, which is a big part of this that we'll get into here in a minute. But so I have an architect, and that's the person who I have a conversation with. So when I spin up my 3-man team, I have one person that I talk to. And then once we agree on what we're going to build and it sees the scope, then what it does is it spins up sub-agents, and that one architect agent manages those 2 sub-agents. So it will build everything, and it will do checks, and it will do a balance, and they actually like check themselves. But so it's a file handoff system. I have a conversation with my lead architect, just like any CEO or any website owner would have with a developer. And then you would say, listen, developer, go build it. And then however the developer sees fit, they go and they do their own thing. So that's the same thing here. So my 3-man team is, it's a specialized AI agent team. They work together and they hand off things through files. That way there's nothing that gets missed, or, a lot of what goes wrong is what I call lost in translation. You say one thing, but it builds you something else. So my architect actually writes a file and says, this is what we're building. And then my builder reads that file and it builds everything to scope. And then my reviewer looks at everything that was built and says, this is what the architect wanted. This is what the builder built. Do they meet? And so I have that own checks and balances. And so that's how I'm using AI, is I will have just a great conversation, sometimes an hour, sometimes 5 hours, sometimes maybe 2 weeks before I actually build anything. And I'll try to think everything through. But then when I'm ready, I have this file that is written in such a way that's like detailed about, when you build this plugin, here's what you're going to have. Here's what we need. Here's the things we're going to do. And so my 3-man team will spit that out. And so it's like a whole loop, if you will. And it's based on my time of working in development shops, because that's the same thing that happens, right? You have somebody who owns an agency. Microsoft calls them and says, hey, we want a website. The owner says, all right, I know where we're going with this, gives it to the project manager. Now the project manager gives it to the 2 devs, they build it, and then it comes back up the line. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah. Hey, that's a fantastic explanation of that. So, it even brought up for me, it's like that template of how you thought about that. There's a system and a process that quality, scope, things like that. And the three people on your team help you get that project that you have in your mind out the door in a right way. Because I was talking to someone this week in this series that we've been doing about, how it can, the security issues that can come up if you, just like me, hadn't thought through this and said, I want this, I want this plugin, and went through the one-on-one conversation you've mentioned. And, but I don't have those development best practices. I don't know some of
I
those.
don't either. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you built that entire process. So you step back from that. What I heard, step back from the process that you're thinking about, and what are the critical elements in that. And that for you fleshed out as three avatars, three agents. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I think 3 is the default minimum for me. So I have different instances of this. Like, the beauty part about what I've built is that it is it is not a hierarchy, but it like you said, it's a workflow. So I have one person I talk to, and then there's two people below it. But I use this for development. But then I also have my own PR team. So I have a 3-man team that's a developer. So I have an architect whose name is Arch. I have a builder whose name is Bob, like Bob the Builder. And then I have Richard, who is my reviewer. And so I have those three, and that's my WordPress development team. But then I have a WordPress marketing team. And so I actually, instead of an architect, a developer, and a reviewer, I actually have a creative director, and then I have this, and then I have that. So you can actually take my 3-man team and mold it to what you're building. So it's not just like software you download and you have to install, it's software that you can personalize. And so that's the thing, is that, I have maybe 12 different versions of 3-man team. I have like an HR, I have a PR, I have like all my marketing, I have my development, my quality assurance. Whatever you want or whatever you're doing, you can set that up, and you can even set it up per project, or you can install it globally, and then you can have that team just manage your different directories or your different folders on your computer. So it really is about giving you something that you can personalize, and that's where like the personas come into it.
Okay. So talk me through this for a second. So I love how you gave a parallel to the marketing for your business and things like that. That's really brilliant. But you're thinking through, stepping through the process. Like for instance, the marketing side. I know you have an architect, but you're handing that off to this one of your agents, or one of the people on your
Hmm.
team, and then it's going through a simple process. But walk me through your thought process about like converting that. You're in code and things like that, but when you go to marketing, what are the questions you ask yourself? What are the ways, like how you form those people, Richard and Bob the Builder and Arch? I love.
Each agent that you have with the 3-man team, you give it a persona. So Arch is, I call him like a the 50-year-old silver fox, like just the guy that's got like a little bit of gray in his hair, but he's got like a good suit, but like he's very smart. He's done this WordPress thing for 20 years. He's seen people that have done it right. He's seen the projects that come in and fail. Like that's my person. And then and this is all, if you go to the GitHub, there's a link that takes you to the docs. And I actually had AI give me pictures of what I think these people look like. So I have my CEO, who's somebody that's been in it for a while. That's my architect. And then my builder is somebody who is a 23-year-old who was working at a place and was making good money but hated it. Now wants to go to a place and just be creative. And so I'm giving each one of these people a persona. Each team member of this 3-man team has a persona. So when you bring that over to the marketing, I used to do marketing in Vegas when I worked at the Plaza Hotel Casino. And so I was building websites for them, but I was in the marketing department. So I actually have my architect for my PR team. Her name is Natasha, based off of the person who I worked for. And then I have my other person, and that person has a name. And so each one of these has a persona. And for me, I feel like, and this is just in my head, but it's what makes me productive, is I feel like I'm actually talking to that person. That's why I give them a persona. And it just, as they're building things, instead of just AI hallucinating, which is a really big word right now, it will just think up whatever you are trying to tell it. Instead, for me, I'm telling it what I want it to think like, or I'm trying to at least get it in the ballpark and say, this is your circle to operate in, instead of a circle that's like this, you know?
Yeah. Just,
So each
yep.
persona, whether it's marketing or HR, I just think of that person that, if I was working in HR, who is that person I want to work for? And I base each agent off of that person.
Now on the personas, and I've swam in this for a long time too, from the marketing side, not from
Mhm.
the Claude and AI side of things when we're talking about agents. But the personas, how deep do you go with that?
Well, for me, I go very deep. So like I even have, for my own stuff, I have my own support team. I have my own 3-man team that I can have it log into my Russell NV WordPress site. It can know that there are 7 plugins to update. And then my architect for that support team is based on me. And it is very critical about, okay, like let's look at the 5 plugins that are updated. Oh, I see Gravity Forms. That's a very crucial part to my website. So we need to be very careful with this. And we need to, when we update it, what does it break? What does it do? And I have it analyze the plugin itself and not read the changelog. I love the changelog for Gravity Forms. I think they're one of the companies that do it right. But as you might know, when it comes to changelogs, they can be very blah.
Yep.
Like, just fixed something. Like, what'd you fix?
The
we
last
don't
on
know.
the list.
But so, like with my 15 years of support, my agent, my persona for that is me, which is very critical. So for my stuff, I go very deep. But for somebody who is maybe dabbling in this or like wants to get this set up, you will eventually progress over time. You'll see that like, oh, I have it doing this, but I want it to be more focused on here, or maybe I'm not thinking about, and like that will just evolve over time. And that's kind of the idea here, is that, this is all progressing so fast. I mean, AI wasn't even in the conversation maybe 2 years ago.
Yep.
I don't remember. I mean, I remember people talking about the singularity and stuff like that, but it was never like, hey, what AI package do you pay for? How much a month do you like? It was never involved that much. And here we are now where it's baked in the core. So it's happening so fast. My thought is that you need a core structure, and then you can evolve it or you can adapt over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, when you were describing the persona and how you do that and how you're embedding yourself like those is your values. I think that's one
Mm-hmm.
side of it. I'm hypercritical. I don't just, I'm giving things that you didn't say necessarily, but you could say I'm
Yeah.
hypercritical of this and I scrutinize everything. And then shift that role. But I love how you also, I've done this in reverse with marketing, but
Yeah.
or maybe the same way, but just go, you thought of the best people for the roles you needed. Natasha, on the one hand, loved working with you, respected her work, I'm sure. And from
Yeah.
that, extracted something where you might not say, I'm not that person, but I used another avatar, a real human being, to think about how to formulate and embed my values in that. I think that's pretty brilliant.
Here's the best part about it too is I'm going to pull a reference here, which is I also have a 3-man team just for writing content. So, like for me lately, I've been very vocal about certain points of WordPress, but whatever that is, like if somebody has a blog that you just respect, you can actually tell your AI agent, hey, go read the last 30 blog posts, and I want you to understand their tone of voice and the way that they think. And now your AI agent can do that as well. There's a bunch of stuff that do that. So if there is somebody out there, like we'll use Gary Vee for instance, I really like the way that he says things. Gary Vee has a blog, so when I need somebody who is an out of the box thinker, I will train an AI agent to go look at his last X amount of blog posts. And now, even though I'm not talking to him, I'm talking to an AI agent that has an idea about how he would say it or how he would think about it. And that's kind of the really beautiful part about this is that I'm not somebody who can explain things in a certain way when it comes to like blogging or things like that, but I know others who are. And so I have a point that I want to get out, but I want to say it like this person. And so you can, start stacking those layers on top of each other.
Yeah. That process alone, I think is so good and helpful to hear about all this. I think, like you were saying, it's evolving so fast. It's like it's leapfrogging. Every time there's a new update. It seems like, and so it reminds me of the first days I got into WordPress. Same thing. It was just going fast. This is like
Yeah.
whole other level.
What's sad is like it took skateboarding 40 years to like get to the point where it is now. And like one commercial about AI and like it just leapfrogged skateboarding. You know what I mean?
It's
It's
incredible.
just like that's how quick it goes.
Yeah, it's hard to hang on. That's for sure. Well, I might guess here with all of your background, what you've done in the past and everything, there's also a WordPress maintenance team you have as well.
So that is something that I'm actually working on as a product with this, which is my thing is this is that I think AI is wonderful. I'm clearly using it. No question about it there. Um, but what standards do you have? There are actual WordPress coding standards that you can follow. And then they recommend some things that are out of my league, but at least AI understands it.
Yeah.
And then, so it can do stuff like that. Um, so for me, the way that I use all of this is that I'm still the person that says yes or no to everything. I'm not just letting AI run wild and then upload it to wordpress.org and there's version whatever of my plugin. That's when people say AI slop. It's just they're just dreaming of an idea, like we said, like I want this plugin, do it. But it's like, is that the best version of that plugin? Or technically, does it work, but it's not what it should be? So for me, the buck still stops with me. So I always ask AI when I'm building something, I go, okay, where can I test this? Or I say, how do I test what you just built? Like I make it tell me, go here, go into settings, click on this, then you should see these 5 whatever. They should do this. Like I have it explain it to me, just like you would ask a developer, just like you would ask somebody like, "Hey, you built this new thing for me. What does it do?" So, like that stuff still comes to me. I don't let AI tell me, "Hey, it's done," and just ship it. I'm the person that goes, "All right, ship it." And I think that's when people start talking about AIs coming for your job, I think that there are some processes like that where you can just automate it. But for what we're doing right now, I don't think WordPress or AI is coming to replace people in WordPress because there's so many different flavors of WordPress. And I've said this for so long. Like, you have a blog, I have a blog, and essentially we're writing this, or we're doing is we're putting out new blog posts on our blog roll. But how I do it and how you do it are two different workflows. And so, like, AI is not just going to come and replace that. Everybody has their own way of doing it. So for me, my 3-man team is a system that I have that allows me to accelerate some processes that I don't need to be directly involved with, but I still need to oversee when they're done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the things you said that about AI replacing jobs and things like that is the role of the editor. You have your own internal on your 3-person team or reviewer, I know, but you're the final one. You're the
Yeah.
one looking through. Did they do it right? And that's managing, supervising, editing, refining. That last critical component, I think, is pretty instrumental to the whole thing. Like, it's not just going out the door, like you pushed a couple buttons initially and then you don't see it. You're still checking that work.
Yeah. Well, like, database bloat, having too much stuff in the database that doesn't need to be there. AI doesn't, I mean, it knows about it. If you ask your favorite AI right now to define WordPress bloat, it will go on like a goodwill hunting speech of like all this stuff, right? But when it writes that code and it's writing this new thing, it's not keeping that in mind. It's not thinking about how big is this database about to grow. That's something that if you don't know about that, you are never going to understand it. And I think that for me, and that's where all this comes back to, is I'm going to go check what errors is this throwing. Do I need to go check the error log? Do I need to get into the database to see all the tables it created? So I'm very critical about what I'm releasing instead of how quickly can I get it out there. And so for my 3-man team, that's where these guardrails come in. As you start getting into this, if you take the time to start reading, so like there's a markdown file. Everything in AI is .md, which is a markdown. And so if you start reading the architect markdown, it tells you do's, don'ts. And then for me, I have like my own rubrics of things like I don't want, or I've seen things do this, they don't work. Point case, here's this plugin that's been abandoned for 10 years on the repo. So I already know it doesn't work. So I can tell it stuff like that. So, like the way that it's going, I'm telling it I've seen this or I've done this, or, like I can give it instances so I don't have to keep repeating myself. It knows, or it should know, the conversations we've already had because I can point to it to different ways. So when you start looking at the architect file or the reviewer file, you can really start making changes to those. And like, though the more they grow, the more usage you're using, because every time AI reads that, if it's 100 lines, it's going to use 100 tokens to read that. If it's 1,000 lines, it's 1,000 tokens. I mean, like that's the way to think about it. But for me, I would rather spend a little bit now for my AI to know what we're doing instead of spending a lot later trying to clean it up.
And forgive me, yeah, you've been so good about explaining this for me, and I think I show up as the curious person interested, hasn't gone this far. However, when you say tokens, and I've been on the platform enough, but how is that different, what we're talking about here, than maybe putting that whole thing into one specific one-to-one chat?
I have a 3-part series. It's on, if you go to russellenvy.com right now, scroll into the bottom of the homepage. There's a 3-part series and one of these talks about that. So every time that you ask AI something, it's a token. It costs something for AI to do something, and then it costs something, or it costs AI something to give you something. So if you have a 1-line file and you say, please go read this, it will cost you 1 token. So when you have like a Claude Pro account, let's just say, and to keep this simple, they give you 1,000 tokens. So every week you get 1,000 tokens, and then you can either burn all of those, and then you have to wait a week until it resets, or you can be like me and you can try to figure out how to get the most out of, instead of using 1,000 tokens, how can I get this down to 250 tokens? So for me, it's about how many things is this reading and writing, and then how many things does it have to go read and write? So every time that I'm talking, or like the way that I interact with AI is I won't just sit down and start thinking about it. I'll actually write maybe a blog post, and like, I want to make this change to my plugin. Here's my sources. I'll write a whole thing, and then I'll give that to my AI, and then I'll let that read it. And then it might be 500 lines long. So it's going to cost me 500 tokens to read that. But that's much better than doing one line at a time. Well, what do you think about this? Well, what do you think about that? No, I don't like that. Well, like if you start getting into a conversation with it, the way that I see some people using AI, like they'll say, no, 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 that's not what I wanted. And they'll hit enter. Well, that just saying no, no, no costs you something. So the much more efficient way to say that is, I didn't like that, please do this. Now it knows, no, that wasn't the right way, but you're also telling it. But some people are still using AI in a way that is very conversational, as if they're sitting at a breakfast table, or they're at like a lunch meeting, and like right now, there's no value being assigned to what I'm saying to you. Even though we're having a conversation, it doesn't cost me anything more than the air in my lungs and my time that I have, but there's still value being assigned. Tokens are the same way. And so if you get really careless with AI, with Claude, it gives you a 5-hour window. You have a certain usage that Claude will give you every 5 hours. And I've seen some things where somebody will say one thing and it will max it out in 3 minutes. And now you have to wait 5 hours for it to reset before you can do anything. And that means you burned all your tokens allowed for that 5-hour window. You burned them in 3 minutes. What is the best way that we can do this here? And for me, I'm always trying to get more out of it. I feel like it's like pennies at the pump, where like I want more gas mileage for what I'm putting into my car.
Oh, that's a good use of it too. I mean, and an example and way of sharing that, because I've just dove in, and I think like a lot of people, and used it. I don't do the one-liners, but I think the more detail helps. And then, but just knowing like a tool is running in the background, that's excellent. Well, speaking of that, WordPress 7.0 just came out. It's got new integration with AI, but I wanted to share or get your perspective on that. And speaking of the tokens, would you share some of the things you're talking about and what you think about with WordPress 7.0 with the AI capabilities built in?
Yeah, hang on, I gotta get comfy. This is my I love AI in WordPress. Let me just be very clear about that. I think that for too long there has been a big divide. You're either somebody who uses it, or you're somebody that builds it. And now those two worlds can somewhat come together. Maybe not for the new beginners, but if you have any experience in WordPress, whether you write blogs, or maybe you create forms, or you're looking at entries, you can use AI to go do these things. So for me, I am the biggest fan of the new WordPress Abilities API, where like you can tell it that this is the abilities that you have on my site. So for me, when I open up the Claude desktop app, I can say connect to russellenvy.com through this protocol, and it goes, okay, cool, I'm connected. And then I go, I want to do this. And so I have a file on my WordPress site. It's a plugin, and it says these are your abilities. You can write a post. There's these Yoast meta SEO things. There's this, there's that. So I really love that you can do that. So now you can write all of these things. And so based on the abilities that you give your AI, it can do a lot of things for you. So I think we're now in that age where you don't have to necessarily hire someone for everything, which is kind of where we were before. If you wanted a plugin, hire a developer. If you wanted somebody to fix your thing, hire a support agency. If you wanted this, find a new theme, or like you always had to go somewhere. Now I think with AI and WordPress, it can all almost start coming in house, which is what I always teach people. I don't have to pay for support. I don't have to pay for a developer. Through 15 years and running a meetup in Vegas, I can do it myself. And that's what I teach people, is not to have to go spend that. With the new AI in WordPress, they created an AI team. Have you seen that?
Yes.
So they have on GitHub, it's like github.com/WordPress, which goes to them. They have what are called agent skills. And so they actually have specific skills that you can give any one of your agents. And that says, when you build a plugin, this is how the scaffolding should go. This is how it should be built. And then when it comes to security, here's what we recommend for this thing called PHP stand. And so they have their own set of skills that you can give your AI. And so, they've thought this, a lot of people have thought this from the ground up. It's not just like AI is this cool word and now it's embedded in WordPress. It's actually a part of it now, which is so many different layers. But for me, what I think the biggest benefit here is that I want to use AI to do the things that I am tired of doing
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And the things I really enjoy, I'm going to keep doing. But I am also going to automate some of that. Like, I write all my own blog posts for my head. I speak into my phone and I take notes. But then I'll have AI read it and I'll be like, what do you think? What do you think about this? And then it will come back and it'll say, hey, did you know so-and-so has an article about that from 5 years ago? And here's what they said. And then I'll go read it. And then now I'm learning. So I'm actually using it to not just make my WordPress site better, but like I'm learning from it. So I think with WordPress and I think with AI, this whole thing it's level again. Like, when custom post types came in, it was level. Everybody can now learn custom post types. But then as we get further from the release date, there's some people that are still beginners and there's still people here. But then child themes came up. So now everyone's level again. So now, right now with WordPress, with this new 7.0, it's a level playing field. Nobody knows what AI looks like. Nobody knows what AI is supposed to do. It's kind of the wild, wild west again. But we're always bringing that level playing field into WordPress, I think. So where we are now, when you log into WordPress 7.0 and you go into settings, there's a thing that says connectors. And so on that connector screen, it will actually recommend if you want to use Claude, or if you want to use ChatGPT, or if you want to use Gemini. Those are, I think, the big three right now. That's why they're listed there. They have step-by-step on how to do that. And now, once you connect those, there's another screen that you can say, I want to use it to suggest a title for me. So when I'm writing a blog post and I don't know what to title it, you can click on suggest a title and it will read your entire blog post and will go, I think you should call it this. I think that is a fantastic process because I struggle with that. I struggle with, like, what should I name this thing, or what should I do, or Or, you can say, find my keywords. Maybe I write a great blog post, but I don't know what my SEO keywords are going to be, or I don't know what my long tail is going to be. So, you can start doing these. And that's a very crucial part that's always been missing out of WordPress. It's kind of one of those things where if you don't know it here, you don't know how to put it into WordPress. But now we're bringing all those things that live in my brain or your brain, and we're bringing them into the dashboard.
That's a great way to describe it, and a great thing that I had never thought about up until all of this. You cobbled together the tools. They were awesome. They're free mostly. Okay, if I need a forum and I want to do some advanced stuff, I'll go to Gravity Forums and things like that. But now that barrier to entry, even this, where you get stuck up on a headline, as you mentioned, or otherwise, you've got Russell sitting there essentially, and the collaboration of all of us. That knowledge that's been out there, right there at your fingertips. That's a great way.
It's like you have the WordPress community now in the dashboard. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, the same thing with the tokens, though, because you have to use an API, like for instance with Claude that you use. And that's where I think you mentioned earlier that could get real quick out of scope, real quick when and something that people using that obviously need to be wary of, that it could run up the big tab for you.
With this new introduction of AI into WordPress, I have a Claude account. So I went to claude.ai and I went to their pricing page. I pay $20 a month. And so I can use the Claude desktop app, I can use the Claude mobile app, or I can use the command line interface, and I can use it. But when you go into WordPress and you go into settings and you go into the connector screen, it will say, do you want to connect Claude? And then you'll say yes. And then there's a little link that takes you to, it's called console.claude.com. And so that is still Claude, but it is a different service than if you have a Claude account. So there's two different things. My Claude account is basically I pay a monthly fee to use a service, or you can connect an API, which is what you're doing. You're connecting your Claude API account. So when you are inside of WordPress and you click on that thing that says suggest a title, it's going to, again, read everything that you wrote. And if you wrote a 10,000 page essay and it's got 93,000 lines, that's 93,000 tokens it's going to burn. And that translates to how much money you actually have on your API account. So if you're not careful, and if you don't set a limitation saying never spend more than $100, or I'm going to prepay it and put maybe $150 in there, but don't go over $150. And if you're just sitting there clicking it, or if the page freezes, or you think it froze, and like we all do, we sit there and we keep clicking and we keep clicking to see is it working or whatever, you can max out that API really quickly. And so again, because every time you click, it's going to reread the same things over and over and over. So if you are not careful, you can burn through that separate balance from what you actually use. Like for me, I use my Claude account to build my 3-man team. But inside of WordPress, it's still Claude, but it's a separate side of Claude.
I want to ask you, thank you all for all of this. I think it's given me, and I think many others, a way to think about and approach AI and utilize it for the work you're doing. What are you excited about next? What are you into? You mentioned the product with an AI and maintenance. I can't wait to bring you back, by the way, to talk about that. But what are you excited about, and what are you working on next?
Currently, I just did this today. I just released version 1.2.5 of my 3-man team. And I'm currently working on version 1.3 of this. And so right now, if you install this 3-man team, it's an AI agent. And so when I update, let's say I come to a new thing, what I'm actually doing is I'm not telling you what to install. What I do is I have the AI agent look at my GitHub repo, and it can read a file that says, this is what we changed. And then it says, go look at how Cory is using 3-man team and compare it to what the new version is, and what can we pull from there to make your 3-man team better. Because see, like a lot right now is if you have an app on your phone and you install the latest feature, or I'm sorry, you install the latest update, they're now putting things in there that maybe you don't need, or they're putting things in there that you'll never use, or they're putting things in tucked away in the menu hamburger bar that you'll never use or whatever. For me, I think about updates differently, and I think about, I have my 3-man team and I'm using it to do this. Maybe I renamed my architect and it's no longer architect, it's now Natasha. Or maybe I renamed my builder and it's no longer Bob, it's Cory or something, right? So instead of my AI team saying, this is what the update is, go apply it, it will actually have a conversation and will say, did you know there's an update? Did you know that it's doing this now? Do you think that we should be doing that? So I'm thinking about the way that we're updating these tools. And I'm, like instead of installing a package through Homebrew on your computer, or instead of installing a new download from a website and then you install it or whatever, I'm actually making suggestions and then letting you and your AI fit or decide what's the best for you. So for me, what I've learned is that I'm building my own updater, similar to how we have like the GitHub updater. So you can have your own WordPress plugins on GitHub, and then you have your own way to update it. I'm working on my own AI updater. So you can have your own AI project, and then you bake in this updater, and then now whenever you release new updates, it will go and do that. So I think that for me, that's where I'm going, is I'm less about WP these days. I love it. I still have the tattoo. My name's everything. Russ Lenby will never not be WP. But for me, I'm starting to venture out and I'm starting to think about things like this because I do think it's the new frontier, if that makes sense. But then how do I bring it back into WordPress? And I think that I've seen you've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. And I think that there's just better ways to do that. So I do spend a little bit of my time thinking about that, my support thing that I'm building for sure. But as of right now, I think for me, for the future, I just want to see how much gas we have in the tank with this thing. How far can I go? Like I feel like it's almost an electric vehicle and I have this charge. How far am I going to go now? Like what can we push? What can we do? And what I really love about this, Cory, I don't even know if you know this or if you do this, but I do everything from the command line. Like I use the Claude desktop app sometimes on my computer, but I do everything from the command line, and I can actually talk to that same command line from my phone. Did you know that?
I didn't.
So if you install, or if you run Claude and you say remote, if you say remote control, it's like a command line interface. So you say Claude and then you say dash dash remote dash control. It will actually, I can open up the Claude app on my phone and I can see that conversation I'm having on my computer. And then when I'm in the car, I can sit there and talk to it, and it's still building on my car. Or I'm sorry, it's still building on my computer. So like when I'm at practice tonight with my son who rides BMX, I'm watching him, but I'm still sitting there working, having the same conversation as if I'm sitting at my computer.
That's fantastic.
I
I
think
I
it's
think I want to
beautiful.
go back to one thing you said, and the core. Really last 15 years grew up in WordPress for sure, and an expert in that platform. But I think it's wise. I think agency owners should be thinking beyond, well, all of us, but thinking beyond just WordPress and seeing, like you said, how much gas is in the tank. There's a lot here. One of the things that I think about, I'm curious if you run into this with all you're doing with AI and things, is consulting for businesses, just trying to say, is this something that would help us? There's a lot of promise with AI, but I think from an agency side, I think we get labeled IT, and different things, but the core is we know some technology. We're in technology. AI is this new one. And I think, just like you were mentioning earlier, the Wild Wild West reminds me of the early days of WordPress. And those of us that are out there pioneering, doing these things, breaking stuff, making stuff, seeing how it works, just like WordPress, I think are the ones that are going to be in a position to help others and get paid for that. And I think that's just an evolution of our work. The core may still be one of the tools we may use is WordPress, but we use a lot of other tools too. This new tool, I think there's this big, broad space and opportunity to help others do this, just like you're doing with me and the people that are listening. But what are your thoughts on all that? Related to agencies too, and freelancers and consultants and people that, hey, this is my core skill. It might be WordPress, it might be something else, but that here's a big new one that if we're afraid, we can kind of draw back. But if we kind of lean in a little bit, there's a big opportunity there. But what are your thoughts?
I'm too young to remember when the debit card was introduced, but there's still people out there now that have no clue about debit cards. And then the same thing with CDs, right? When we went from tapes to CDs. So this moment with AI is like that. We have these computers. Now we have this new thing called AI, and like there's gonna be people that they'll have no clue. My dad is one of those people. I tell my dad that I have this thing that works for me, and my dad's like, I'll never do it in my life. I'm like, Dad, you don't even know what it does. He's like, I'll never use it. I know he never will, but he's very aggressive about telling me that. And I think that there's a lot of agencies or just business owners that want to learn how to bring AI into their team. My wife works at a company, and they have a Copilot, which is Microsoft's version of AI. However, that is nothing more than an assistant. It cannot write HTML. It cannot think through processes, or it cannot do Excel spreadsheets. And so I think that a lot of companies right now that offer an AI service, they're putting a lot of pollution out there as to what AI could do, but like isn't there yet. So for me, my wife, she works at this company and she does global advocacy. So all of the people that are very happy with their product, she is their advocate for them. But so they have a 3-person team. It's her, another woman, and her boss, and they're always too busy. They can never get anything done, right? So I told my wife, you should come up with this thing. Like, if you were to hire an assistant for you, what would you want that person to do? And that's where my 3-man team comes in. You're basically building an AI agent or an AI person or a persona, and you're saying, this is how I want to format all my spreadsheets. This is how I want to format. And so you're not passing the buck, or you're not having to spend another 180,000 on a person. If I know it all, you're just having AI help you with it, but you're still checking it. So I think that, speaking to anybody out there watching this right now, you don't have to remove all of the people in your company and replace them with AI people, because I think your company will fail. You still need the human trust. You still need the people who've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. But I do think that there are these processes that you can build to free up your person so they're not constantly having to do things by hand. AI is great at reading an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can take that Excel spreadsheet and make a PowerPoint conversation, or make a PowerPoint presentation. So I don't have to do that anymore, or I don't have to block out 3 hours of my day, or I don't have to work when I get home, or like all these things that we're doing right now. I think with this AI technology that we're having, we can ask people to work less, but we can get more out of them by using tools like this, if that makes sense.
It sure does. Russell, where can we find you?
I'm on the road 5 days. No, so I'm mostly these days Russell, RUSSELL, envy.com. That's always been my website, always will be my website. Or I'm on it's X now. I always call it
Yeah.
Twitter. So I have a very unique. It's NQ Rust, like how when we brought in NQ scripts. It's very hard to find, but if you go to my website, I link to all my social stuff there. But I'm mostly on LinkedIn these days. I find that LinkedIn is a much broader conversation, and I think that when you can't go by an alias, you can't be user number 754, like it actually says Cory Miller. Like, people are putting out genuine stuff versus the same kind of slop. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn these days, and then also Reddit. Um, I really I really like the power of Reddit, and I kind of do like the sense of somebody can hide behind a username and at least tell me the truth instead of being worried about maybe they tell me what they think and maybe their license gets banned or something. I mean, like weird things have happened that way. There's stories, but I mean, Reddit, LinkedIn, my website. That's all the places that you can find me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Russell Aaron of RussellMV.com. Go check out his work, connect with him on the socials. And when you get your product and your next things, we'll come back on and do another conversation like this, because I'm curious to get into that. And I know it's something that people will go, yes, you've done a lot of the work for me to make it even easier to save time, energy, get good results out of that. But thank you for being on the agency success community today at hosting.com. And we sure appreciate you.
Thank you so much.